Hello guys and welcome back to TNT Madness. Today we're going to be looking at a 420 TNT cannon. So what a 420 is essentially just a hybrid compressed cannon, but instead of firing just one sand, it essentially fires 40 at once, but you will not be stacking all 40, it's just firing it all at once. So it's essentially very variable. So it means that it may stack 5 sand, it may stack 10, it may stack 20, but it's very low chance. It normally stacks around between about 4 and 10 sand every time you fire this, and it can be slightly different at different ranges, which I'll be showing you when I'm firing this. But essentially the only thing that is the closest I can compare this to is the hybrid compressed cannon I did 2 weeks ago, which inspired me to make this video because a lot of people thought that this cannon was better. Is that this is essentially just a slightly simpler version of that, and there are pros and cons to each one, which I'll go over later on. But essentially it's just a hybrid compressed cannon that can stack more sand than a normal one could. However, the downside of that, it means that you have to reload the sand every time you want to fire it, which can be quite annoying for quite a few people. So that's one trade-off that you might have to have, but if you're working with a lot of people while doing this cannon, I'm sure that will not be an issue. So now on to firing. So what I have here is our 420 cannon and a wall, and the great thing about this over something like a hybrid compressed cannon or the other one I did, which can shoot 2 sand, is the fact that it can shoot a lot more than 2 sand. Even though it's firing out 20 sand, because it hasn't got a hammer, it's not going to fire that at all. It is still a variable output, which means that it can stack up to 20 sand but not 20 sand. So for this it can stack between 5 and 20 sand, and of course it may go slightly off and not land on it, but it's still going to stack as a considerable amount of sand considering the size of the cannon, considering it's almost the same size as a normal hybrid cannon. So if I go ahead and press this button, this will fire off, and then all of the sand will fall down into its little barrel, and then it should go ahead, fire at this wall. And as you can see, this time it actually stacked perfectly, which is great for us. So let's see how much sand that stacks. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9 sand. That's quite a decent chunk. And of course this may be slightly different at different ranges, but it's not actually as bad as you think, but I'll be showing you that in a second. But the other great thing about this is because of the way this works, it can still hybrid at essentially any height, because you'll be having sand that goes upwards and that can still land on it. So if we go ahead and turn the hybrid off, we can hybrid on, we can now have scatter mode enabled, which is just where we hybrid the wall. Also, one thing to be aware of is I'm actually firing this at north or south. So if you fire this east or west, then it's going to be slightly less accurate just because of the way Minecraft works, so it may stack less sand than it normally would. So either way, if we go ahead and use this, we should see it hybrid the wall. And as you can see, it actually hybrided the wall a lot, and it actually did like a mini nuke, which is pretty fantastic. So it's very powerful. This is quite a massive hole. Even a one-shot cannon could be quite difficult to do something as strong as that. So as you can see, that did a lot of damage in a small area. So the sand stacking over different ranges doesn't really matter. So if we fire this one, we can see that it should still be moderately accurate, but this is like 2 chunks rather than like 12 blocks. And as you can see, it's still, I think that stacked 9 sand as well, and it actually did. So that's 2 chunks, and this is nearly 4 chunks, this one over here. So even over a considerable range, it can still sand stack quite accurately. So if we go ahead and see this fire, and as you can see, this one actually stacked higher than the rest, but that's probably just because we have it above the rest. But as you can see, this is quite a decent range cannon, so if you need to use this at longer ranges, like let's say between about 5 and 8 chunks, and it's still a fairly decent cannon, you're just going to have to aim it a bit higher than you normally would, as you can see that we have here. So in my opinion, this is a really strong cannon, and the only real cons of it is that you have to reload it every time you want to fire it. Well, like a hybrid compressed cannon, you just press the button, wait for it to fire, and then press the button again. But of course the trade-off for that is you're stacking more sand with less TNT. So I'd say it's actually a win-win and better than a normal hybrid compressed cannon. And now onto the redstone. So now on to the redstone. So this is actually not the most complex cannon in the world. It may look somewhat complex, but it's actually pretty simple, and if you remove like this main bit, it essentially looks like a normal hybrid compressed cannon. So the main bit that we have here is our actual hybrid compress part, and we have the compression part just hid away back here, just with redstone on top of it, just so it looks a little bit nicer, because we actually need this extra space for a repeater that goes all the way around here, just so we can keep it as compact as physically possible. So what happens here is, after you press this button here, TNT at the back will fire, and then 2 ticks after this, TNT here will fire. And what that means is that the TNT from here will push all the TNT up to this slab up here, so that way when it fires everything else, it will fire all the way out the barrel. It's general stuff, just the normal compression system that's in pretty much every cannon ever. So after that, what we have is, on this left side, it is our scatter module, or just our little scatter bit. So normally what I would use is a comparator clock, but because redstone torch burnout clocks, when you do them in short bursts, are actually really reliable, there's no point adding something more expensive like a comparator when you can just make a redstone torch burnout clock, or just a burnout torch clock. So what happens is, when this redstone torch goes off and this lever is turned off, this is just so you can toggle it, it will go ahead and turn this redstone torch on and then power this redstone. And because this redstone is then powered, it will then turn off this redstone torch, and it creates a loop. And because Minecraft can only run at 10 ticks a second, it will then make a 1 tick pulse, or 10 redstone ticks per second, so a 1 tick pulse, so it can fire 10 times, because stone buttons are 10 tick delay, or they are on for 10 ticks, so it can fire out 10 TNT from each dispenser, so 20 in total before it actually fires, which is really nice. And we just have this added bit of delay, so that way the sand can, the TNT can actually sit on the sand and wait for the sand to fall on it, and just gives it a little bit of delay so it actually all works properly. So that's that little bit here. And on the right side is probably the actual most important part. So this may look a little bit concerning of a thing, but all you have to remember is that sand can stick inside of cobwebs, because if you didn't know, sand is a falling sand entity. It can be pushed by pistons and by TNT and all that, and can't be broken. So we can take advantage of that by having the sand fall down into those cobwebs, because these cobwebs will break the moment we fire this, because what happens is we go redstone, will go all the way up here. It will destroy these cobwebs, which means there'll be no platform for this to sit on, which means all the sand will fall down into this little area here, and it will just slowly fall down onto this. So I'll show you what that looks like just quickly. So that will go ahead and fall down on here, and as you can see, it will just fall down there. But essentially what happens is, you'll have your sand sitting on top of here, so it'll be down here and it'll slowly fall down, but it won't have enough time to actually reach the bottom. And because some of the sand is actually hanging out the top, we need a 2 wide gap up here instead of a normal 1 wide, because normally we would have our actual pistons stuck up here. And because of that, we then have to go ahead and add the second layer of slabs 1 block down, just so in case the sand doesn't fall properly, it actually can break by these slabs, or else we'd have to have them still at this height. Just means that it can fire properly. So what happens is, TNT fires after 40 redstone ticks. So what we need to do is, we need to make it fire either 1 or 2 ticks before this TNT goes off. So for that, we just need to add 40 ticks of delay, so the same as TNT. So that's very simple. We just bring 10 redstone repeaters set to 4 ticks delay along here, bring it all the way up here, which then powers this redstone block, which then powers these 2 redstone here, which then of course powers these 2 pistons below it. And then what will happen there is 1 tick, or in this case 2 ticks, before this actually fires off, the sand will push out into the barrel. The main hybrid TNT will be sitting in here. This will fire, and then we'll push it out into the wall that it's going at. So it's actually not too complex, and if you're wondering what this is here, it's just a stopper. You don't need it. It just gives you a representation of how much sand you need to stack. So one quick thing I want to mention before we get on with the tutorial is, if you're wondering why we need this piston bit up here, you technically don't. I just like everything automated. The other way you can do it is, since you're reloading this every time, is that you can go ahead and destroy the sand here. It'll fall, but then you have to be very quick to actually come back here and fire it. And since when you're building cannons like these and raiding people, even if you're going solo, you can normally make it back in time to actually fire it before, as you can see here, it's about to break, and already the sand is breaking. And that just means you don't have to build as much, and it means that it can look a bit sleeker. And as you can see at this point, it essentially looks almost identical to a regular hybrid compressor cannon, but of course has the added benefit of the extra sand stacking. So now onto the tutorial. What you're going to need is a 5x13 area, a very compact area for a cannon of this magnitude. So this quartz bit just represents the middle of the cannon, or the actual barrel or firing bit where all the TNT and sand all that's going to be firing in. You're going to need some building blocks, 4 slabs, 25 dispensers, 23 redstone, 15 repeaters, 2 torches, some water source blocks, 2 ladders, and you're going to need 4 cobwebs, 20 sand, and 23 TNT to fire each time. Or if you have the hybrid enabled, then you're going to be using up to 43 TNT to fire this. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is placing down our dispensers. So what you want to do is place down 3 around the back here, and I'd recommend just placing blocks on top of them now, and even 1 there. Then go ahead and place 2 blocks on the other side of this and place down 2 ladders. You can go ahead and place down your water source block in there now if you want. Now you just want to make 2 2x5 areas on each side here, so 1 there and another one here. These are going to be your main propellant dispensers. Now you want to go up by 1 block and just cover these up, and then we can go ahead and start making our main barrel. So you want to place a slab there, get rid of these 3 blocks, and then place slabs down 1 block below floor height, and then we can go ahead and start placing in everything else. So we're going to be making our main barrel. So what you want to do is place 2 dispensers up like this, then cover it up all up like this, and then for the rest of this part along here we can just go ahead and cover this up like so. But for this side we're going to be placing down our pistons. So one thing I managed to overlook is you're going to actually need 2 pistons, but the first thing you want to go ahead and do is place down a block here and then some temporary blocks behind it, just so you can place down these 2 pistons like so. And then what you want to go ahead and do is place blocks on top of them with redstone on top of that, and then we can go ahead and cover off this front bit and this little area here like so. That's just so the sand doesn't get caught on the left or right when it actually pushes out and doesn't clip anything. So now that we've done that, we can do the main redstone. So the first thing you want to go and do is place a button on the side here. It can be a wooden or a stone one, which I also seem to have magically forgotten about. But the next thing we're going to be doing is, for a start, connecting up our main sand part. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and place iron going from here to here. So what you want to do is place down a repeater here set to 4 ticks delay, and we can place redstone just along here. Go ahead and place redstone there, and then go ahead and place 9 more redstone repeaters, all set to 4 ticks delay that go all the way up here. Now we can go ahead and connect our repeaters up to these main dispenser bits, so go ahead and set these to 2 ticks delay, bring redstone all the way up to here and then up here. And if you're going to be adding the extra piston bit, then go ahead and add a redstone line that goes up here and 2 pieces of redstone that go up here, and then go ahead, you're going to need 2 extra pistons for this, and destroy this small little area here. So once you've done that, you've done this main part here. So all we have to do now is hook it up to these main dispensers over here. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and place a block here with a redstone torch on the side of it, a block on top, and redstone like this. This will create the redstone torch clock until it burns out. Then you want to go ahead and place 3 blocks along the bottom like so, place a redstone torch on the edge here, and go ahead and place 3 dispensers all set to 4 ticks delay. So all you want to do now is go ahead and place water source blocks, what I'd recommend in all of these areas. However, you only really need the 1 water source block going along down here. It's just better safe than sorry, how I would say it. So now all you have to do is go ahead and load each of these dispensers with as much TNT as you want, and I'd recommend placing more in these 2, as these are the ones that are going to be firing multiple TNT per shot. So the way you load this thing is you go ahead and place 2 cobwebs down there, 2 up here, then go ahead and place sand blocks that go up by 10, so 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then go ahead and place some sort of block on top. I'd recommend slabs or some decorative block, and then you can use that as a marker, and then every time you fire this you just want to repeat that pattern. So anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. It was a different cannon. It was